Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be looking at tutorial 20 MYOB payroll categories. In our last session we looked at how to create our two employee cards for Mary and Alan, and we put in all their details. Today we're going to look at categories and how to customize and modify the categories, the payroll categories that may change depending on the employee's employment conditions. So I'm going to go through a few examples and give you an idea as to how this is changed. Now, payroll categories are the components of payroll. So we're not specifically dealing with employees here, but these categories are associated with employees. So, for example, if we were to create a new overtime category for overtime public holiday, which is typically 2.5, so I've given it a heading. I can associate that with people that get paid on an hourly basis. And because it's an overtime of 2.5, I put here 2.5. What that does is it multiplies their hourly rate by the 2.5, which is the overtime rate. Now, I've adjusted, or I've created a new category here. But for that to apply to the employees, I've got to actually click on employee here and put a tick next to the employees that it relates to. So Alan may not get public holiday allowance. He might not be required to work on a public holiday, or he's because he's on a salary, he's not eligible for public holiday overtime. But Mary is, because she's on an hourly rate. So by putting a tick next to her, if she does work on a public holiday, I can pick that up in the pay slip or the pay run, and I can pay her that additional overtime. So that's what I'm looking at with payroll categories. Now, in the exercise here, the first part of the exercise, wage categories, it asks us to go to payroll categories, choose wages, which is over here, and ensure Mary is linked to the hourly category, right? So if I go to base hourly here, and if I go to employees, I'll soon see that Mary is associated with this category, which is correct. The next thing it's got here is check that Alan is linked with salary. All right, so that's fine. I go to salary, and I'm going to find that Alan has already been associated with that as well. It's been ticked, which is great, which is good. It's also got personal leave and annual leave are associated with both employees. So I'm just doing some checks here. So if you simply go into the personal leave, which is, over here is annual leave, employees, I can see a tick next to both, which is good, and do the same thing for personal leave pay, and they're both ticked, so that's associated, so that's all good. Now we've got our superannuation and deductions categories. Now Mary would like an additional $50 taken out of her wages as an employee additional superannuation contribution. So this is on top of the superannuation guarantee that we discussed, the 9.5%. So if we go over to here, superannuation, we're looking at this category here, which is employee additional. So if I go here, this is the employee's own contribution. I want to equal that $50 per week, per pay period. But I only want this associated with Mary only. Okay. Don't get confused with this lower part here. This refers to a limit, because superannuation, if you withdraw or if you put in more than I believe at the moment it's $20,000 per year out of your own money as an employee contribution, you're going to get taxed more than the 15%. So there's various taxation legalities that you need to be aware of. And that's the reason why we've got this ability to limit things so that we don't go beyond the threshold and come into a high tax bracket. But that's not for us to worry about right now. This is the part that we have to focus on, and that is knowing how the category works. And union fees only applies to Alan. So I've got that tick, so I click on OK. And now I'm going to go to union fees, which is an introduction. I go to union fees, and what we want is $150 per year. Okay, so we're going to do that per year. So a small amount each week is going to come out, which is going to total $150 per year. Okay, so you'll see how this unfolds. And the same thing here, we don't have to worry about the limits. We go to employees and we want to associate with Alan only, which it is, and so we're okay with that. To correct account allocations, okay, this is important. Now, over here, you'll see that you've got these account allocations already defaulted. These are going under other liability and expense account. We want to make this a little bit more specific with superannuation. So we know at any one time what liabilities we have that relate to superannuation. Now, at the moment, we don't have a liability. Yes, we do. We've got liability superannuation accounts here. So I'm going to associate this one with 1420, Superannuation Fund 1. And it's an expense. Superannuation is an expense to the business. So I'm going to look to see if we've got a superannuation account set up under our expenses, which we don't. So I'm going to create one which is 6-4110. 6-4110. And I'm going to call it superannuation expense. So essentially what happens is superannuation is withheld by our organisation, and it's submitted to the superannuation company, usually every quarter if it's a small business, or every month if it's a larger business. So what we want to do is to keep a track of how much superannuation we're withholding from each employee. So it comes into a liability first, and then when we pay it out, okay, to the superannuation company based on how much we need to, which we'll look at a later stage based on our reports, that then becomes an expense. So hence that's the reason why we've got the two accounts. So it's dealt with in the right way. Now I'm going to do the same thing now for the employee additional super, because that at the moment is just defaulting into another payroll category account. So I'm going to do the same thing here, put that under our superannuation account. Now, if I wanted to, I could have used Fund 2, and that will further differentiate our 9.5% superannuation, which is the guaranteed, the compulsory one, with this additional super, which is an additional amount that the employee wants to contribute. But I'm going to leave it under 1 for now, just to keep it simple. So that's all good. Looking down, I've gone down to C now, expenses and wages, change work cover insurance to 1.5%. So I'm going to go to expenses over here. Work cover is calculated at 1.5%. And that's that, and the employees, it should be both be ticked, it is. Okay, so that will work out our work cover insurances for employees. I can see that once again it's just a default account. So I'm going to leave it as it is for now because I can't see any exercise requesting us to change that. Annual leave loading wants us to change that as well. So I'm going to go to the annual leave loading. I believe it's a wage category. Annual leave loading over here. And it wants us to change it from that to 0.2. Okay, so that's been changed. And then I've got our tax category, which is over here. And we want to make sure that the pay-as-you-go withholding tax category is the pay-as-you-go withholding payable account, which it is. So that's all good. Nothing has to be changed here. So one other point as well. Let's assume that Alan also wanted to contribute additional super, but they didn't want to contribute $50. He wanted to contribute $60. Okay. Obviously, we've already set this up for Mary. Okay, so what we can do is we can rename this Mary, because this relates to her $50. Okay, and we could create a new account. This time we'll call it employee additional dash Alan, and $60 for Alan, and we can link that to Alan. So what that does is it creates a specific category only for Alan because he wants to contribute a different amount to what Mary does. So we need to therefore create a different category in order to ensure that the amount he desires gets forwarded across into his payslip. So that's just an additional note, and it just came to mind as I was going through this. So that's our categories, and that's how to edit and make changes if required. Now, just another side note, a lot of these categories have been designed and set up to work accurately. It's only when there's internal differences or the organization does things slightly different that these categories need to be further modified. So there's additional categories here, and you can create additional ones. For example, entitlements. We're going to be looking at RDOs at a later stage and whatnot. So we're going to be creating new categories as we go. So that's the completion of assignment 20. And in the next assignment, we'll look at how to process their pays.